Alright, so in this video, we're gonna look over solving trig ratios. And here's the two things that are gonna be important. The first is knowing your quadrants. So you have your first quadrant, your second quadrant, your third quadrant, and your fourth quadrant. And now in the first quadrant, you want to remember all students in the second quadrant take coffee, something like that, any acronym. But ASTC, these are the important terms. Why? All trig ratios are positive here in the first quadrant. All trig ratios. All trig ratios are positive in the first quadrant. In the second quadrant, S, sine, and its reciprocal, cosecant, are positive. In the third quadrant, tan, right? T is for tan, and its reciprocal, cotangent, are positive. So these are positive. Everything else is negative. In the fourth quadrant, cosine and its reciprocal, sec, these are positive. Everything else is negative. All right, this is what you need to remember. And second of all, you need to be very, very good at writing angles in terms of 180 degrees, 0 degrees, and 360 degrees. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you have something like 225, then this you can write it as 180 plus 45. So you need to know this, and you need to familiarize yourself doing this in both degrees and radians. So 0, pi, and 2 pi. So that is going to be an essential skill, and you are going to see why. All right. So the first question, and okay, let me turn on my laptop to the answers so that I don't teach anything wrong or contradictory. All right. So it says, express the following trig ratios as trigonometric ratios of acute angles. All right. So sine 190. Your first task is to write it as sine in terms of 0, 180, or 360. And you need to choose the angle, or 720, whatever. But you need to choose these angles in a way that you get an acute angle afterwards. So if I pick 180, I can write 190 as 180 degree plus 10 degrees, right? So that's how I need to pick it. I need my second number to be acute because usually I know the trig ratios for acute angles. So I need to pick my first number so that my second number is acute. All right. So now if sine, since I picked 180, you can keep sine as it is. So that is the trick. You write sine as 180 or 360 or 0 plus something. Then you just take sine of the other thing. So 180 plus 10, you just take sine of 10 degrees. Now, which quadrant 190 falls in? 90 is here. If you go up until this point, you get 180 degree. So 190 is in the third quadrant, right? And in the third quadrant, what is positive? Tan is positive, cot is positive. So sine is negative in the third quadrant. So that is how you write it. So I hope that made sense. Negative sine of 10 degrees. And we'll do more and more questions, and I think that will sort of solidify the concept. Secant 305 degrees, right? I can write this as secant 360 degrees minus 55, right? 55 degrees. So I wrote it in terms of always 0, 180, 360. So secant 360, I can keep secant as it is. I choose my second angle, 55. But now, secant 55. So this is an acute angle, right? 305 degrees. What quadrant is it in? And if you draw your quadrant out, you will see that this angle is in the fourth quadrant. And in the fourth quadrant, what is positive? Cosine is positive, secant is positive. So my answer is positive secant 55 degrees. All right. Tan 125. How do I write this? Tan, it's going to be 180 minus, is it 45? No, okay. 180 minus 55, I think. Yeah, 180 minus 55, right? So always in terms of 180, 360, so that I get an acute angle. So now I can write this as tan 55 degrees. Where is this angle? if you think about it, this angle is going to be in the second quadrant. And in the second quadrant, only sine and only cosecant is positive. So tan is negative in the second quadrant. So your answer is negative tan 55 degrees. All right, so now let me just draw the quadrants again. So your first quadrant, your angles will lie from 0 to 90 degrees, or 0 to pi by 2. And in the second quadrant, your angles will lie from pi by 2 to pi, which is 90 degrees to 180 degrees. In the third quadrant, it is going to lie from 180 degrees to 270 degrees, or pi to 3 pi by 2 radians. And in the fourth quadrant, it lies from 270 degrees to 360 degrees. And it rotates, right? You can have more than this. And we will have to think about which quadrant it falls in if you have an angle greater than 360. All right, so this is 3 pi by 2 until 2 pi radians. And here, all trig ratios are positive in the first quadrant. Only sine and cosecant are positive in the second quadrant, right? Only tan and cotangent are positive in the third quadrant. And only cosine and secant are positive in the fourth quadrant. So that is what you need to remember. All right, so I hope if things are clear, I can erase the solutions here so that I can do D. All right. D, I have cosine negative 245. Now here's one more thing that I am going to tell you. Cosine is an even function. What does that mean? That means that, so for an even function, f of negative x is equal to f of x. That means cosine of negative theta is equal to cos theta. Sine and tan are odd functions. What is an odd function? F of negative x is negative f of x. That means sine and tan of negative theta is equal to negative sine theta and negative tan theta. So that is what you need to remember. All right. So this is a very important point. These are very, very important points. All right. So now that we know that cosine, okay, this moved a bit, I'm sorry. Or that cosine is an even function. So cosine of negative 245 is just cosine of positive 245 degrees, right? Now I can write this as cosine 180 plus what number? And if you think about it, the number is going to be 65. Cosine 180 plus 65. So this, now that I've written it in terms of 180, cosine remains as cosine 65. And this is in the third quadrant. In the third quadrant, cosine is negative. So it's negative cos 65 degrees. All right. So we are done with part D. Part E. I am more familiar, more comfortable with thinking of things in degrees. So usually I would like to convert things to degrees. So pi by 5, right? Remember, pi is 180 degrees. Pi by 5 is going to be 180 divided by 5, which is 36 degrees. So 4 pi by 5 is 4 times 36 degrees, right? Because I'm just multiplying by 4 here. So that gives me 144 degrees. So I can write this as cos 180 degrees, but you have to convert it back to radians usually. So it's also okay to think about it in radians actually, because if you change to degrees and then you have to work in converting back to radians. If you're more familiar with working with degrees, then please convert and convert back. But here's what I'm going to do. Cosine 4 pi by 5, well, pi is going to be 5 pi by 5, right? Sorry. But pi is going to be 5 pi by 5 because these 5 will cancel out. So 4 pi by 5 is just 5 pi by 5 minus pi by 5, right? I get 4 pi by... And remember, 5 pi by 5 is just pi. And pi by 5 is 36 degrees. This is an acute angle. All right. So now cosine I can keep as it is. I can keep pi by 5. And this, remember, is going to be in the second quadrant. This is in the second quadrant. So cosine is negative in the second quadrant. So you put a negative sign in front. All right. We're done with E. Cosecant 9 pi by 8. 8 pi by 8 is pi, right? So this is cosecant pi plus pi by 8. I hope it makes sense why I wrote it like this. So because pi is 8 pi by 8 plus 1 pi by 8 is going to give you 9 pi by 8. And now you can keep cosecant as it is. Pi by 8 is going to be an acute angle. And this is in what quadrant? Well, pi up until pi, this is 0, this is pi. So up until pi, we are in the second quadrant. So anything more than pi is in the third quadrant. And in the third quadrant, only tan and cot is positive. So cosecant is negative in the third quadrant. Cosecant should be negative in the third quadrant. Yeah, it should be negative. It should be negative cosecant pi by 8. And you can check. You can do 1 over sine, that is cosecant, right? So you can do 1 over sine, and your answer is 9 pi by 8. And yeah, your solution is negative. So 1 over sine So I think, yeah, your answer should be negative. I don't know why the textbook says it's positive. It should be negative. All right. So sine negative. Remember, sine is an odd function. So you write it like this. First, you can bring the negative out. Cosine was an even function. So negative doesn't matter. You just take the angle. But for sine, you have to, the negative comes outside. And you can write this as negative sine in terms of pi is going to be pi minus 3 pi by 10, right? Where this is the acute angle. And pi is just, so pi is just 10 pi by 10 minus 3 pi by 10 gives you 7 pi over 10. So this angle, so negative, I keep as it is, and I know how to work with this. Sine stays as sine. I write 3 pi by 10, and this angle is in the second quadrant, if you think about it. Pi is 180. 3 pi by 10 is some acute angle, so you are going to get positive here. And then negative positive will give you something negative, right? Negative sine 3 pi by 10. That should be your answer. And this also does not match with the textbook, but you can check. You can put it in your calculator. And yeah, your answer should be negative. Your answer is negative. Your answer, yeah, should be negative. So that is the solution to G. So your answer is negative sine, because negative positive gives you negative, and then you solve it like this. So the key is to be familiar with writing in terms of pi and 2 pi and basically multiples of pi. So cotangent, 11 pi over 9. You can write it as cotangent pi plus 2 pi over 9. And 2 pi over 9 is your acute angle. And cotangent remains as cotangent. You pick 2 pi over 9. Cotangent, this angle is in the third quadrant. So if you think about it, this angle is going to be in the third quadrant. And in the third quadrant, cotangent and tangent are positive. So your solution is cotangent 2 pi over 9. But for F and G, I will highly encourage you to check your answers. But if you plug it into your calculator, your answers should be negative. All right. So I hope I can erase everything. And yeah, let's do question 2. Without using a calculator, find the exact values of each of the following. All right, it's the same process. So cos, I can write 120 as 180 degrees minus 60 degrees. And remember, this is in the second quadrant. Keep cosine as it is. Take the cosine of 60 degrees, and it's in the second quadrant. Cosine is negative. Only sine and cosecant is positive. And that gives you negative cos of 60. Cos 60 is half. So your solution is just negative half. All right, the same process here. You can write this as cotangent 360 degrees minus 30 degrees. This is in the fourth quadrant. You keep cotangent as it is, take cotangent of 30 degrees, and you have to put a negative sign because cotangent is negative. Only cos and sec are positive in the fourth quadrant, right? And cotangent 30 degrees, that is 1 over tangent 30 degrees, right? And what is tangent 30 degrees? Well, it's 1 over square root of 3, if you remember. And that is going to simplify to negative root 3. That is the solution. All right, sine 225 degrees. You write this as sine 180 degrees plus 45 degrees. And you just take sine 45. This is in the third quadrant. In the third quadrant, sine is negative. Only tan and cotangent are positive. So you get negative 1 over root 2. Or you can also write this as negative root 2 over 2. How? How do you do that? Well, negative 1 by root 2, you multiply and you divide by square root of 2. So this is process known as rationalization because we don't like keeping square roots in the denominator. So you're just multiplying. Root 2 divided by root 2, this part is just 1. So multiplying by 1 won't change this expression. So you get negative root 2 by 2. All right, so that is the solution to C. So if that is okay, I'm going to erase things so that I have space for D and other questions. All right. Okay. So tan of negative 300. Remember, tan is an odd function. So you can write it like this first. And then tan 360 minus 60 degrees. And that is going to be equal to negative tan. Now remember, we are evaluating this expression, right? So keep tan 60 degrees. But this is in the, what quadrant is this in? It's in the fourth quadrant. In the fourth quadrant, tan is negative. Only cos and sec are positive. So you get positive tan 60 degrees, right? Negative and negative will give you a positive. And tan 60 degrees is square root of 3, positive. So that is the solution to D. All right. For E, it's the same process. You write it as cosecant pi plus pi over 3, right? Cosecant pi plus pi over 3. 4 pi over 3 is pi plus pi over 3. Pi is 180 degrees. So you write it as cosecant pi over 3. And this is in the third quadrant. In the third quadrant, cosecant is negative. So negative cosecant pi over 3, negative 1 over sine pi over 3, right? Cosecant pi over 3 is just 1 over sine pi over 3. And what is sine pi over 3? Sine 60 degrees, or pi over 3, is equal to root 3 by 2. So you have 1 over root 3 over 2. And if you simplify, you are going to get negative 2 over root 3. And you have to rationalize this answer. So your final solution is going to be 2 root 3 by 3, negative. Or negative 2 by root 3. So the textbook did not rationalize it. But this is your solution. All right, negative 2 over root 3. That is your solution. Tan negative pi by 6. Remember, this is just negative tan pi by 6. And what is tan pi by 6? Well, that is just 1 by root 3, right? Tan pi by 6, this is 30 degrees. And I already gave you the trig values. So that's just negative 1 by root 3. All right, I hope I can erase stuff. All right. Cosine 7 pi by 3. Cosine. Write it in terms of pi or 2 pi. Well, I can write this as pi plus 4 pi by 3, right? Where pi is just pi you can think of as 3 pi by 3 plus 4 pi by 3 gives me 7 pi over 3. But this is not acute. This is not acute. This is an obtuse angle. So let's write it as, instead of writing as in terms of pi, let's think of in terms of 2 pi. And you will see that it's 2 pi plus pi over 3. Why? Because 2 pi is actually 6 pi by 3, right? Plus 1 pi by 3 gives you 7 pi. So you can write it as 2 pi plus pi by 3. And this is just cosine pi by 3. And 2 pi plus pi by 3 is in the first quadrant. And in the first quadrant, all angles are positive. So if you think about it, 2 pi is up until this. And then if you go take an acute angle, you are in the first quadrant here. So 2 pi is one full rotation, and then you go an acute angle up, right? So you are in the first quadrant. And cosine pi over 3, that is just half, positive half. Cosine 60 degrees is half. All right. Pi by 3 is 60 degrees, right? So cot 10 pi by 3. Let's think about this. So I can write this as cot 10 pi by 3. Let's try in two terms of 2 pi. So it's 2 pi plus 4 pi by 3. Because 2 pi is 6 pi by 3. Plus 4 pi by 3 is 10 pi by 3. But this is not an acute angle. This is an obtuse angle. So maybe in terms of 3 pi is helpful. Because 3 pi is 9 pi by 3, right? So 3 pi by 3, 9 pi by 3 plus pi by 3. And if you think about it, 2 pi is one full rotation. And if you go pi 180 more, you are at this point. So this is 3 pi radians here. So it's the equivalent of 180 degrees actually. So cot 3 pi plus pi over 3, you can write it as cot, because this is in terms of, so it works in terms of pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi. As long as it's a integer multiple of pi, you can still use the rule. So cot 3 pi is okay. I just take cot pi over 3, and then it's in the third quadrant. In the third quadrant, cot is positive. All right. So 3 pi plus pi over 3 is going to be in the third quadrant, right? So that is just 1 over tan pi by 3, and tan pi by 3, if you remember, is root 3. So your final answer is 1 over root 3, positive. And that is the solution to H. All right. So I hope I can erase stuff. Question 3. Given that sine is negative, less than 0 means negative, and tan is negative, name the quadrant in which angle theta lies. All right. So in the first quadrant, all are positive, so it cannot be this one. In the second quadrant, sine is positive, so it cannot be this one. In the third quadrant, tan is positive, so it cannot be this one. So it has to be the fourth quadrant, so that sine and tan are both negative. So it's in the fourth quadrant. All right. Question 4. So we're done with 1, 2, and 3. Question 4. Given sine theta is equal to 2 over 5. So let me just draw. All right. So let's say this angle is theta, and sine theta is equal to 2 over 5. We are always going to draw a triangle for these questions, but we are going to have some extra considerations. Theta is obtuse. And what does obtuse mean? Well, it's bigger than 90 degrees, right? It's bigger than 90 degrees. So in this sense, it's going to mean that it's bigger than 90. Wait, so and theta is obtuse. So angle is not in the first quadrant is what it means. And sine is positive. So if it's not in the first quadrant and sine is positive, where is theta? Theta is in the second quadrant. That is important to know. Sine is positive. It's not, theta is obtuse. That means it's not less than 90. It's not in the first quadrant, so it's in the second quadrant because sine is positive. So that's what you need to know. Theta is in second quadrant. So this is going to be a very helpful piece of information. Now, what is sine? Sine is just opposite over hypotenuse. And opposite is 2, hypotenuse is 5. So opposite is 2, hypotenuse is 5. We can use the Pythagorean theorem to find this c side out. So c squared plus 2 squared is equal to the hypotenuse squared, right? Using the Pythagorean theorem. So c squared plus 4 is equal to 25. And c squared is 21. And c is square root of 21. So c is just equal to square root of 21. All right. So now the question asks us to find cos theta and cot theta. So what is cos theta? Well, that is adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent is root 21, hypotenuse is 5, and it's in the second quadrant. In the second quadrant, cosine is negative. So this is your answer. Negative square root of 21 divided by 5. All right. What is cot theta? Cot theta is adjacent over opposite, right? If you remember from the previous video, adjacent is square root of 21, opposite is 2. And cotangent is also negative in this quadrant. So negative square root of 21 over 2. That is your solution. So knowing the quadrant is very, very important for these questions. All right, question 5. Given that cosine is this value, and you are given the quadrant, it's in the third quadrant. Find the value of this. All right, so you can ignore the negative sign for now. So you just draw this triangle. You take theta, and then you are given cosine theta is equal to negative 1 by root 3. So ignore the negative sign. Cosine theta is just adjacent over hypotenuse, right? So if you draw your right angle, this is 1, this is root 3. Adjacent is 1, hypotenuse is root 3. And we can find this side A out. A squared plus 1 squared is equal to root 3 squared, right? Using the Pythagorean theorem. So A squared plus 1 is equal to 3. A squared is equal to 2 if you subtract 1 from both sides. And A is square root of 2. And remember, theta we know is in the third quadrant. It's given in the question. It's between 180 degrees and 270 degrees. So it's in the third quadrant. All right. So now we need to find sine theta and tan theta. Sine theta is opposite over hypotenuse. What is opposite? Root 2. What is the hypotenuse? Root 3. But remember, in the third quadrant, sine is negative. So this is your answer. Negative root 2 by 3. And we need to find tan theta. Tan theta is opposite over adjacent. So what is opposite? It's root 2. What is adjacent? It's 1. But tan theta is positive in the third quadrant. So your solution is just root 2. All right, that is your answer. And we are done with question 5. And you are going to solve the rest of these questions in the same way, right? So this means it's in the third or fourth quadrants, right? 180 to 360 is this range. So it's in the third or fourth quadrants. But tan is negative. And when is tan negative? When it's in the fourth quadrant. So it's actually in the fourth quadrant. Our theta is in the fourth quadrant. So that's what you need to be careful about. Tan is negative. It cannot be the third quadrant because tan would be positive. So it's in the fourth quadrant. And then now you just ignore the value in the negative sign. Tan theta is negative 5 over 12, I think. Right. So it's just opposite over adjacent, right? So opposite is 5 and adjacent is 12. This is opposite, this is adjacent. And you can use the Pythagorean theorem. 12 squared plus 5 squared is this mystery side c squared. So 144 plus 25 is equal to c squared. C squared is 169 and c you are going to get 13. All right. So now what do we need to find? We need to find cosecant theta and cos theta. All right. Cosecant theta. What is that? That is hypotenuse. And remember, theta is in the fourth quadrant. So hypotenuse over opposite, right? What is the hypotenuse? It's 13. What is opposite? It's 5. In the fourth quadrant, cosecant is negative. So negative 13 over 5 is your answer. Cosecant should be negative. All right. And then, because tan is negative, so it's definitely in the fourth quadrant. So yeah, cosecant should be negative, and cosine of theta is just adjacent over hypotenuse, right? So what is the adjacent? That is 12. What is the hypotenuse? That is 13. And in the fourth quadrant, cosine is positive. So it's 12 over 13. All right. So this should be negative, this should be positive. I don't know why the textbook is not accurate on these ones. Okay. So now we're going to do questions 7 and 8. So it says, given tan 25 is equal to A, express each of the following in terms of A. All right. Tan 205, we can write it as tan 180 degrees plus 25 degrees, right? And, all right. So this is just tan 25 degrees. But remember, tan is positive. This is in the third quadrant. In the third quadrant, tan is positive. So positive tan 25, which is just A. So 7A is just A. All right. So how do you know sine 25? 25 is an acute angle. Is in the first quadrant. So all trig ratios are positive, right? So this is 25. Let's say this is 25 degrees. This is 90 degrees. What is this angle? And if you find this angle, because 90 plus 25 plus this angle must be equal to 180, you're going to see that this angle is 65 degrees. All right. And tan 25 is A. So tan 25 is A. I can write A as A over 1, right? And this is opposite over adjacent. So opposite is A, adjacent is 1. So I can do 1 squared. If I need to find C, 1 squared plus A squared is going to be C squared. What is C? C is the square root of 1 plus A squared. So C is the square root of 1 plus A squared. All right. And now I need to find sine 25. Sine 25 is opposite over the hypotenuse. And that is your solution. All right. What is cosecant 65? Well, that is 1 over sine 65 degrees. And what is sine 65 degrees? Well, look at this angle. Sine 65 is opposite over hypotenuse. What is opposite to this angle? That is important. Opposite to this angle is 1. So opposite to that angle is 1 over the hypotenuse is, so opposite to 65 is 1. So whenever we say sine theta and I say opposite, I mean opposite to theta. So in this case, theta is 65. What is opposite to 65? It's 1 over hypotenuse is square root of 1 plus A squared. All right, so if you simplify, you get 1 plus A squared. And all expressions, because the angle is acute, is going to be positive here. So this is acute, this is acute. Cos 245. All right. So cos 245, I can simplify this. I can write this as cos 180 plus 65 degrees, right? And this is in the third quadrant. This is in the third quadrant. So this is equal to negative cos 65 degrees. And I can find cos 65 from my triangle. Cos 65 is adjacent over hypotenuse. Cos 65 degrees is adjacent to this angle is A, and my hypotenuse is this expression. So that is your solution. So negative, remember you have negative A over 1 plus A squared. So that is your solution for D. And we are done with question 7. In question 8, you do it in exactly the same way. All right, so I hope I can erase stuff, so I have more space. All right, question 8. Given cos 77 is B, secant 77 is 1 over cos 77. So that is just 1 over B. That is A. Now you want to draw your triangle again. This angle, let it be 77 degrees. This is 90 degrees. And if you find the third angle, you are going to see that it's going to be 13 degrees. 77 plus 13 is 90 plus 90 gives you 180 degrees in a triangle, right? In any triangle. All right. So find cos 77 is B. What is cos 77? Well, cos 77 is B divided by 1, I can say. And B is adjacent, 1 is hypotenuse. So B and 1, right? Because that is cosine of any angle is cosine of 77 is adjacent over hypotenuse. So B is adjacent to 77, not 13. Adjacent to the angle in question. And 1. All right. So now you can do the Pythagorean theorem. I'll call this side A. A squared plus B squared is going to be 1 squared, right? Hypotenuse squared. So A squared is just 1 minus B squared. And A is just square root of 1 minus B squared. So I'll just write this as square root of 1 minus B squared. All right. So now what do I need to find? I need to find tan 13 degrees. Tan 13 is opposite over adjacent. So go to 13 degrees. 13 degrees is here. What is opposite? B is opposite. What is adjacent? Square root of 1 minus b squared. So your answer is b over square root of 1 minus b squared. And 13 is a positive angle, so you just put positive. All right. 1 minus b over 1 minus b squared. And we are done. Sine 257. I can write this as sine. I either want to write in terms of 77 or 13. So I can write sine as 180 plus 77, right? I think that gives you 257. All right. So this sine remains a sine. You take sine of 77 degrees, but this angle is in the third quadrant. In the third quadrant, sine is negative. All right. So what is sine 77? You use your triangle. It's going to be opposite over hypotenuse. So if you do that, you are going to get negative 1 minus b squared divided by 1, which is just square root of 1 minus b squared. And you have a negative sign. All right. That should be your answer to C. It should not be 1 over b. I don't think it is. It should be negative square root of 1 minus b squared. And let's do D. So this I can write cosine 360 minus 13 degrees, right? Cosine of 13 degrees and 180 plus 77. Yeah, it does give you 257. So sine remains a sine. You take sine of 77 degrees. And it's in the third quadrant, so it has to be negative. Yeah, so this should be your answer. Opposite over hypotenuse. Yeah, should be this expression. And cosine 360 minus 13 degrees gives you 347. So you take cosine of 13 degrees. This angle is in the fourth quadrant. Cosine is positive. So what is cosine of 13 degrees? Cosine of 13 degrees is, so you go to 13 degrees here, adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent is square root of 1 minus b squared. All right, so it's just positive square root of 1 minus b squared. All right, so we are done with question 8. Question 9. A and B are in the same quadrant. Sine is positive, cosine is negative. So it's not the first quadrant, because if it was the first quadrant, cosine would be positive. So it has to be the second quadrant. I hope that is obvious. Sine is positive, cosine is negative. That is the condition for the second quadrant. All right. So now you just draw your two triangles. So we know our angle is in the second quadrant. So just draw your two triangles. All right. So first angle is A, the second angle is B. Angle A, angle B. Sine of A is 5 over 13. Sine of A. So sine is opposite, 5 over 13 is hypotenuse. And if you solve, you are going to get this side to be 12. I'm going to leave you to solve that. All right, cosine of B. Ignore the negative sign because we know our angle is in the second quadrant. Cosine of B is 4 over 5. Adjacent 4, adjacent to the angle B 4, hypotenuse 5, you are going to get this side to be 3. I'm going to leave you to figure that out again. All right, find the value of cos A. Use your cos triangle. Cos A is adjacent over, use this triangle, right, with this angle, hypotenuse, but it's in the second quadrant, so it has to be negative. So your solution is negative 12 over 13. All right. Cot A. Cot A is adjacent over opposite. And it's in the second quadrant, so it's negative again. So negative 12 over 5. Sine B. Sine B is opposite over hypotenuse. And it's positive because it's in the second quadrant, so 3 over 5. And secant B. How do we find secant B? Secant B is hypotenuse over adjacent. And then it's in the second quadrant, so it has to be negative 5 over 4. And you're done. So question 10, you do it in exactly the same way. All right. So, okay, 10 and 11 are the last questions. So tan is negative, cosine is positive, A and B are in the same quadrant. So what quadrant is it? Well, if it's not the first quadrant, because tan would be positive as well. So it has to be the fourth quadrant, right? It has to be the fourth quadrant. Cosine is positive, tan is negative. That happens in the fourth quadrant. All right. So tan A is 2 over 3. Negative, ignore the negative sign. This angle is A. It's 2 over 3. All right. So what is this side? Well, you are going to find that this side is going to be equal to 13, square root of 13, I believe. All right. So I'll leave you to do that on your own. And you draw your other angle. So this is B, right? And cos B is 3 over 4. So cos 3 over 4. And this side is going to be 16 minus 9 is, I think, square root of 7. I believe. Yeah, square root of 7, I think. So I'm going to leave you to figure this, how to find the size of the triangle, because we've done so many questions now, right? So this side is going to be square root of 7, and you can check using the Pythagorean theorem to figure the sides out. And yeah, you use the sign here to figure out what quadrant it is. So what is sine of A? Sine of A is just going to be opposite over hypotenuse. So it's just 2 over root 13, but it's in the fourth quadrant, so sine is negative. All right. Cosecant A is just the reciprocal. So it's just negative 13 over 2. Yeah, that should be cosecant A, right? Cosecant is 1 over sine A. All right, what is sine B? Sine B is root 7 over 4. And it's going to be negative, because it's in the fourth quadrant. And yeah, what is tan B? Tan B is opposite over adjacent. So root 7 over 3, and then it's going to have a negative sign. So opposite over adjacent, negative root 7 over 3. That should be your answer. All right. So yeah, question 11. So we just need to complete the table. So we need to find, okay, so there is this angle. So we need to complete this table. All right, fine. So this is an angle where sine is positive, secant is negative. So this has to be in the second quadrant. So that is the information. For this value of theta, sine is positive, secant is negative. So that is only possible in the second quadrant, right? So now I need to find an angle sine of theta, which gives me 1 by root 2, and theta is in the second quadrant. How do I find that out? Well, sine of 45 degrees is 1 by root 2. And think about it, if I write it as 180 minus 45, it's the same thing. I'm still going to get 1 by root 2, right? Why? Because this expression, using the rule, the same trick we've been using throughout this video, I can write it as sine of 45, right? 1 by root 2, because sine does not change. You take your second angle and it's in the second quadrant. So sine 180 minus 45, what is this value? 135. So this angle is going to be 135 degrees. All right, so we figured the angle out. All right, so now we have some trig ratio that, so some trig ratio of 45 of 135 is negative 1. And if you think about it, remember tan 45 is positive 1. So let's look at tan 135. Well, tan 135 is tan 180 minus 45, and I can write this as tan 45, but in the second quadrant tan is negative, so I get negative 1. So this trig ratio has to be tan theta. All right, so now that we have that figured out, what is tan 120? tan 120, I can write it as tan 180 minus 60. I can write this as tan 60 degrees, but in the second, this is in the second quadrant, so that is negative. So it gives me negative square root of 3. Because tan 60 is square root of 3. All right, what is sine 120? Sine 120 is sine 180 minus 60. Sine, I write it as it is, 60. And in the second quadrant, sine is positive. So sine 60 degrees is root 3 by 2. All right, and this is filled out. So now secant 210 degrees. Secant 210. 210, I can write it as 180 plus 30 degrees, which simplifies to secant 30 degrees. But secant is negative because this is in the third quadrant. In the third quadrant, secant is negative. I can write secant 30 as 1 over cos 30. And negative cosine of 30 is just root 3 by 2, so 2 by root 3. So if you simplify, you get negative 2 over root 3. That is your solution. And we are done with this topic.